Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Manda. Again, your host and presenter Pa Usman Cham from the UK, broadcasting on VOD Voice Out Digital platform on the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Today with me, I'm gonna have a special guest from an organization that we all could remember played a very vital role in this new Gambia, and this is an organization that is determined and focused only on ensure democracy of law is adhered to and is respected in the Gambia. And this organization is no other than Duga, the Democratic Union of Gambian Activists and the UK chapter. Sorry, USA chapter. So I'm gonna bring up our guest, Mr. Coach Pa Ous and Miss Madam Sohna. Is that Sohna?
Yes.
So we are now both live on Facebook, and if I just give you each a couple of minutes to just introduce yourselves. I'm sure, well, these faces are not new, except for Madam Sohna. I'm not sure if we ever seen you online, but we could intercept from different languages, Maninka, Wolof, whoever you want to speak. I know small goromo muntalako, so the mom or money or pull. So
Well,
we are live now.
well, thank you very much, Pa Ous, for having us. Jerejef Jarama Baraka. I am Coach Pa Samba Jau, and here I am, the Vice Chair of Duga.
Oh, Vice Chair. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for having us. And I'm Sohna Sala, the chairperson of Duga. My boss is Pa Samba.
Ah, yeah, boss. Gender bias bisa dal mungkin go jigen dal. Sohna Sala. Yeah, and viewers, we apologize. We said we were going to come at 8 o'clock, but ham rek do de ham kun ga de wahe. So we stick to the ham. But first of all, I'm gonna start with the chair, who is Sohna Sala. And by the way, thank you very much, and I apologize for that technical error I had. I was trying to switch over from one platform of broadcasting to another, so I had to change the codes. So, Sohna, could you please tell the viewers what is Duga, the Democratic? I know the name speaks for itself, Democratic Union of Gambian Activists. Could you please just give us a brief explanation of what Duga is all about? I've been seeing Duga. I thought it was a person when I add Duga on Facebook profile. Then I realized that Duga is not a person. So could you help me enlighten myself and the population and the world what Duga is all about, please?
Okay. Well, Duga is a civil society organization, and basically our goal and our aspiration is just to see a democratic Gambia, and that was probably, we can call it phase one. We used to get the question a lot of times, oh, so now that AIJM is gone or we've gotten rid of dictatorship, is Duga done with? We're like, no, actually, we're just getting started. So basically, what we want to do is right now just, we have an office in the Gambia with a staff of 3 and young people, and those are, I think, our inspiration and our motivation to just kind of inculcate the whole idea of participatory democracy in the country, especially with the marginalized groups like the youth and the women, and just get people involved and educated as to their civic duties and their civic responsibilities in nation building. And of course, to promote, good governance and rule of law, and make sure that we don't fall back into, the past that we have just emerged from.
Yes. Well. Thank you for that short summary. Before I come to Coach, I'll just like to refer you back to the office you have in the Gambia and the job that you are doing, civic responsibility, and then engaging in having in restoring democracy to avoid the Gambia going back from where we came from. But in terms of, I'm gonna well, we're gonna do it in two segments. Activity in terms of making sure these things are achieved, and the fact that you had an office in the Gambia, what had been the case since 2016, like just mentioned, who said, "Oh, yeah, it's gone, it's all dead." That was the assumption by many. So in our in the current Gambia now, given the fact that things have changed, a drastic U-turn, which we're gonna come after to assess what has and how it has changed, or taking that U-turn, what has been the Duga's activity since they opened office in the Gambia? Because we've not been, well, I have not had anything like workshops, civic workshops, tours to the rural areas, urban areas where they have to educate and teach young people, especially women and these youths, about their civic responsibility.
I mean, in terms of workshops, I mean, our team on the ground, I mean, they are heavily involved. Not even Duga organized workshops, but just workshops all around the country, dealing with other civil society groups. So that's definitely something that we have done. In terms of touring around the country and all that, I mean, that's all part of the capacity building process. As many of you understand, that Duga is strictly a voluntary organization. So it's built by volunteers who have lives. So, I mean, at the moment, what we're doing is we're doing the capacity building, and we're looking into starting 2020 to definitely do some programs and more outreach programs where we reach into the communities. I mean, for the sensitization and civic education.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna come to Coach Pa Ous. Coach, I'm gonna look at from the international point of view. When I'm looking at here, one of the principles of, or one of the goals of the organization, which is to end tyranny in all form and to usher a new democratic Gambia that shall guarantee the people peace and progress and prosperity. And in terms of international support, from your own point of view, hasn't there been any conflict of interest as the many roles that we play as an activist, i.e., being part of a political party and also wanting to adhere to the goals and principles of Duga? Is this not posing any kind of conflict from us in the diaspora?
Well, Duga supports democracy. And one of the key elements of democracy and human rights is the right to freedom of association and assembly. Duga has never shied away from anybody exercising that right. What Duga does not do is Duga cannot be used for one's personal gains, or Duga would not be transformed into a political party. And it will be contradictory for one to advocate for others to have a right to exercise a democratic right and then restrict it for your members. I understand what you're talking about, because there is a gray area. But one thing that we have avoided since the inception of Duga is for Duga to be used by anyone, including its members, as a political tool. But Gambians, all Gambians, we believe, have the fundamental human and constitutional rights to freedom of assembly and association. People have a right to associate themselves with any group. Duga, though, cannot be used in the advancement of anybody's political career or interest. I don't know whether that answers that.
Yeah, and also that brings me to number 3 of the principles of unity, where Duga says they submit to the rules of discipline and set by the coalition. Is Duga more specific to the coalition ethics and code of conduct than to what we have in the Gambia as our law, as the Constitution? So was Duga born as a result of the coalition or as a result of restoring democracy in all forms of civil society?
Yeah,
No. Duga was here before there was a coalition.
yeah.
What Duga people do not understand is after Jammeh stupidly executed 9 prisoners, there was a call to action where Gambians all over the world staged protests. We call it, I think, the Day of Outrage. So after that protest, we decided that it is important to have an arm of the struggle that would be very proactive to be doing things like that. Hence the birth of Duga. And we came up with a name, and actually that was about 6 years ago. It was in October, if I remember. Was it October that GAMBIA executed president, or
No,
September?
it was in August, but Duga was formed in
August.
September, probably 3 weeks later.
September, yes. A few weeks later, Duga was born. So Duga, the reason why you see Duga DC was that it was supposed to be a coalition of civil society groups. Like you would have had Duga London. Duga, that's what we wanted it to be. That everywhere in the world, including the Gambia, there would be Duga. It just so happened that Duga DC was the one that sustained its back. What I don't know what the objective of it. You know, we came, we organized ourselves, we elected an executive, and we started carrying out. And then it so happened that everybody after decided to just focus on Duga as now the central body, even though there were so many protests that have been held where other people, you know, call themselves Duga, participated in it. So that's the word coalition. So the rule that guides this coalition of people coming together, that's what we're talking about, not coalition 2016. It's absolutely different. I think we've adjusted that in our most recent bylaws.
Okay.
I think it's supposed to be the organization and more so like not coalition anymore.
So we are now referring to that coalition of 2016.
No. Coalition 2016 is new. Duga is it was here before, way before that.
Okay, well, it's good that this thing was clear because it's still on the website, and I was also gonna I'm also still looking out that Duga has also opposed the abrogation of the Constitution, so and then an institution and all inhuman and degrading punishment. And this also we've seen what happened in 2016, where when the Constitution was changed and with the process. And I was looking at the Duga Facebook page to see where there was any statement that Duga issued in response to how it was changed and how it was abrogated, and then see, but I could not find any. So and
which change are you talking about? 2016 or 2017?
No, 2017. Sorry, 2017. Yes.
Well,
I was
let's understand one thing.
Okay.
The amendment that was made to, I think it was section 62 of the Constitution, if I remember very well, was done in accordance with the Constitution. That was not a violation of the Constitution. Politically, people had a problem with it because they felt that it was done to cater for somebody. So these are two different issues that must not be conflated. Duga's issue is the violation of the Constitution because this went through a parliament, because that provision of the Constitution is not an entrenched clause, meaning that the parliament can, 2/3 of the parliament or National Assembly can amend a provision of the Constitution that is not entrenched. So Duga would not have accused anybody of violating the Constitution for that, because then that would have shown really lack of understanding of the whole process. Even though there have been so many statements issued by Duga that are not on the website, and we were just talking about that the other time, that we have to put those there, because where statements are necessary, we issue them. But sometimes you don't also just sit and everything that happens, you issue a statement. At some point, you'll become very redundant and monotonous.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm going back to the Madam President. You as a president, I'm sure you may have, well, you have to have a knowledge about Duga and its reason why it was formed. As Coach just mentioned, it was meant to be a coalition of all international organizations, international, a combination of international activists, and the UK was meant to be one of them. Europe, other countries, but like I used to say, America at Europe couldn't talk, right? America always want to take the lead. I don't know what America wants anyway. But has that not have any negative impact in achieving your goals or objectives, be it in the Gambia or be it in the international scene, since the fact that Duga only now, at the moment, actively operates in DC? not in other parts of the world.
I wouldn't even say that Duga actively even operates in DC right now. Right now, Duga is focused on Duga Gambia. I mean, 100% of our energy is focused on Duga Gambia. If need be, if it's necessary for us to act or do anything in DC, of course we will do that. But I mean, you have Duga, as we mentioned, the Duga coalition, and at one point we had Duga Atlanta, Duga UK, but it's not centralized. Everybody is autonomous to do. As I was saying in my introduction, I mean, this fight was a strictly voluntary fight. People have lives. And after the change, I mean, I'm sure some people did not feel like it was necessary to even continue the fight. Okay, we have the change that we want. This is where we're going to stop. So it's strictly a voluntary thing. If we have people who are outside, the DC area or in other parts who want to revive or feel like, okay, now it's time to start up again, that's perfectly okay. But I mean, I think for many, the objective was just let's return Gambia to democracy or a semblance of democracy. And then we go from there, and it's strictly voluntary. So, I mean, but for us, I know Duga, I mean, as in a long-term sense, we're looking more into let's build that base on the ground. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, yeah, that's right. I'm hoping, is there any future plans to extend the Duga and then so they can further strengthen or enhance the work or the promoting of rule of law and democracy in the Gambia? Because clearly, it looks like there is still a lot of work to be done in the Gambia.
Yeah, exactly. And as I mentioned earlier, that's exactly what we're doing. We're in the capacity building stage of enhancing Duga. And Duga diaspora, really, I think it was just born out of necessity. Because obviously these activities could not have been done on the ground during the time of Jammeh. So it was just, born out of necessity. Now that, there's a democracy and a much more open society, the plan is to just push the work there and continue. Absolutely. But it's time consuming, and like we say, we all have lives. We've all fought for so many years. At some point we just need to take a breather and just kind of regroup and figure out a long-term strategy on the work that we want to do. But we have to be very selective because we cannot keep going. I mean, when you never your day, yeah.
I will read a quote from here.
Mm-hmm.
In response to what you said that but clearly living every day life is a struggle. We either have to struggle to live or to get liberty. And this brings me to Harriet Tubman. What is said here? I had a reason. This out of my mind. There was one of the two things I had a right to do: liberty or death. If I could have one, I would have the other. What does Duga make out of this? Is it going to be a do or die struggle? Do we have to live our lives struggling either to live, to die in dictatorship or in oppression, or to live in a very humble and independent and democratic life?
Okay. I will say it was kind of breaking up. I hope I got the whole gist of your thing. But I mean, I don't think we can say we're actually living in a dictatorship. As much as we have problems with a lot of issues that are going on in the country, I don't think this is a matter of liberty or death or anything like that. I'm not, we've achieved, I think, the liberty part. It's just a matter of building on the gains and expanding on those gains and sustaining the democratic process. But I don't think Gambia is not a matter of life and death anymore. And I think we have to guard our gains jealously just to make sure that we don't get back into that.
Yeah, but what is of use of the human being if what is made to make us live as a human being does not reflect what I cry for? Is that not? Is that you may not necessarily define death as in there damga guns and up and down, but sometimes the heart and mind kill by virtue of being oppressed, by virtue of being accessing those basic things in life. And then that also gives me back to this quote. This is a quote on your website. And I am thinking that, could you wanna come there?
Okay.
Well, no,
And let me just point out one thing. That quote, can I just
I
make this
wanna,
point, Pastor Amber?
yeah, go ahead, go
This
ahead.
quote, I mean, that quote is by Harriet Tubman, who was a slave. I mean, so I mean, that's where you have to kind of like just find that gray area and understand the context in which that was being said. So it really, really applied to us when we were fighting a dictatorship. And I mean, still, it applies to us. And I understand there are many, many other issues that are going on: the healthcare, the education, agriculture, and all that. So that too. So give me liberty or give me death. I mean, I think we have to kind of take it into context and not take it so literally.
Yeah, but the code should reflect the spirit of Duga, not necessarily the operational representation of Duga, but in a shadow form, that code clearly should tell the spirit in which the Duga should operate, not necessarily death as in what technically, if during time of slavery is either liberty or death. By all means, pick one. Freedom to speak up, stand against the system, and live in those, like they used to say, I used to have this quote, nigger in the dead wood. Something like that. So we are not, the code is not a direct representation of what we have in the Gambia, in my own opinion, understanding. But in terms of theory, in terms of the spirit that that Duga wants to come in and intervene into Gambia, it's either we remove Jame or we're gonna die fighting. And we've seen people die fighting. And we've seen
Yeah,
people been arrested. Yes, could you wanna come there?
I think if you limit it to just fighting Jammeh, then you're limiting Duga's work. The fight for the liberation of our people, where fundamental human and constitutional rights will be respected, unabated, is a lifelong fight. I think when Sohna says, already you're there, heavy, it's like we have to fight necessary fights. The reason why Duga has decided to open an office in the Gambia is also to continue this fight so that our gains, democratic gains, will be consolidated. And we are doing hababal, where to the extent we somebody would just say, you know what, I'll take advantage of the situation and violate rights and freedoms. I don't know where you see where I'm coming from. So our job, our work will continue. But what we also, because we've also realized that the problem that has always happened is that you've always had one group of people who have always been fighting and fighting and fight. All of a sudden you get tired because you're a human being. But this is why we have these young people, who are very energetic, who are running that office, who understand the issues, and we will continue to engage the government. We will continue to raise the issues. We will continue to work in concert with other groups to be able to highlight issues that would further strengthen our democracy and be a watchdog where we will not allow the erosion of fundamental human and constitutional rights. So it's a continuous fight, but the fights are different. When we fought Jammeh, the tactics that we used may not be the tactics that we will use in present day Gambia. Chances are by now we would have had maybe 10 protests at an embassy because Jammeh would have done something crazy. But now we have a government that we can challenge. We can do our things on the ground. The rights that were denied of Gambians under Jammeh are now being practiced by Gambians on the ground, whether the government likes it or not. There were times nobody would go out to protest. But now, since Jammeh came to power, how many times have you heard of Gambians who have gone out there to protest? The other day, it was the people of Brufut protesting for their land. We've had so many different protests. These are things that were not happening in the Gambia. There was a time when people would not even want to be openly listening to a freedom radio or any other medium that talks about politics. Today, every radio station talks about politics. Gambians are criticizing their governments openly on any radio station now in that country. So these are gains that we cannot ignore and say that they are not there. These are things that did not happen, and this was why it was necessary for Duga and other groups to take drastic measures to fight the government that was there so as to help open the democratic space whereby we would enjoy what Gambians are enjoying today.
Thank you, and I think well, imagine if we had 7, or if Duga was what it initially wanted to be. International bringing all church together, and I think Gambia would have been the best country in the world today. But God knows why. And this always gives me the impression that do we need to have many of Dugas in government rather than political parties in government? Anyone?
No. Yeah, well, you see, governance, you see, it's very easy to be consumed by politics when you are when you are in government. You can be very ethical, you can have integrity, but there are often times when people that are fully touted as the greatest people, once, especially if you are a politician, when you're a politician, for the most part, you have to struggle very hard to maintain your dignity and integrity because you're looking for votes. There'll be places where you'll have to bend the rules and all that. But when you are a civil society group and you are not, your organization is not linked to any interest, like a political interest, you are free to serve as a watchdog. Not all of us can be in government. Not all of us can be in politics. We must have the politicians, but we also have to have very strong civil society groups. You live in the UK. I believe that there are strong institutions in the UK that are keeping the government in check.
Yeah.
There is a reason why Amnesty International is very important around the world. If Amnesty was a political group, it would have been challenged. There is a reason why people even challenge the United States. Because when George Bush would talk about democracy, somebody else would have said to him, you know what, you have Guantanamo Bay. Is that the name of the detention area or whatever they call it? You know, so but the thing is, you need these groups. You look at the United States here. You have civil society groups that are keeping the government in check. So a Duga or any other civil society group that is out there, it is important to be out there because they can play just as important a role, if not a more important role, than anybody that serves in a government.
Thank you. This brings me now to this question now, Madam President or Chairperson. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how political you are, but Coach will interject after from here. What is the position? I know this may necessarily not have to do directly with Duga, because they may want to do the aftermath or trying to make sure people have their rights and they've been respected and the right to exercise their basic democratic human right as per Section 25 of the Gambia Constitution. What is the Duga's position in this current hot topic in the Gambia of these 3 and 5 years? And I know Duga, everything I've seen here is about transparency, democracy, electoral process, and democratic process and democratic methods, and we just put ideological differences, trying to unite these things together and trying to protect one thing, which is the supreme law of the Gambia, and show people realize their rights as a human beings and citizens of the Gambia. This could be the summary of what Duga is all about. But in as much as Duga is doing that, there is something in there as an allowance that could be, or that is seen as an obstacle to achieving these things, which is now something that is a threat to our supreme book of the Gambia, which is the Coalition Agreement 2016, is the 3 and the 5 years. Has Duga issued any statement in regards to that, or are they just being neutral and keeping quiet on that issue?
Well, I think we, as just civil society and those who want to promote good governance and not wanting leaders to entrench themselves as a position, we believe strictly on a moral basis that Adama Barrow should step down after the 3 years. However, we do understand that there is really no legal recourse because the Constitution does give him the 5 years. However, there is no constitution in this world that does not allow for the president to resign at any given point. He can serve 1 month and say, you know what, this is not for me, I'm going to resign. So to say that anybody calling for the 3 years is really trying to abrogate the Constitution or it's being unconstitutional, I don't think that's a fair argument. Because, I mean, the president can technically resign. It's just a matter of whether he wants to or not. Whether he can be forced to resign, no. I mean, because that's the constitutional part of it. But to say that he can't, I mean, that's what I mean. Really, we can't really fight that one. Yeah, I don't think there's any legal recourse, but I do support everybody's right to go out there and protest and voice their opinion and say, you know what, this is what you told us, and we would really love it if our leaders really start sticking to their word. You campaign on this, and I think that was kind of probably one of the driving points in getting this coalition together. Whoever wins or whoever is selected is going to serve the 3 years. I think that was one of the driving points, and it's unfortunate that he's reneging on that promise, but that's the nature of the beast, of the political beast.
Okay, do you want to come there before I come in with a counter attack on that one?
No, maybe I'll wait for your counter, and then maybe I will counter your counter.
Coach, how do you have right now?
Imagine
suma burger, chicken burger bu neex mu ngi xeeñ maa ngi toog fii nii.
Go ahead and eat.
No, du baax suma lexe. But anyway, in our democratic civic society, where we preach good governance, we preach transparency, where we promote the rule of law, in the absence of what could not be defined, what could not legally defined and supported, why do we speak of moral? Because the subject matter here, or the argument point here, is moral. And something that was said. But where we have moral and legal on the upper hand, why would society want to waste time on the other, which is not the basis of why the rule of law was established? If left alone to moral opinion or moral obligations, the Frenchmen wouldn't have, or the degrees, or the people wouldn't have this, or come up with a word called the rule of law, which is supported, or which is always driven by, or promoted by, or embedded in a country's constitution, which is supreme law of the country, which we all, me and you, whether we like it or not, have accepted that yes, we want this thing by virtue of a referendum being passed. So I'm expecting Duga to say, no, we stand by the law, not what was discussed by you. That has nothing to do with me.
All right, you ready? You mentioned two things. You are talking about legality and morality. But young man, I just want to remind you that not everything that is legal is moral. Slavery was legal. Jim Crow was legal. There was a time in this country it was legal in the United States for blacks to be denied to vote because they were considered 3/5 of a human being. But that does not make it right, Pa Ous. It was constitutional. It was accepted, legally accepted in this country, that blacks were to be treated like second-class citizens. The UK that you live in, it was at one point legal to own human beings as property. It was legal but not moral. Here is the issue. The Constitution of the Gambia, like Sohna alluded to, allows anybody, any sitting president, to resign or to die. Succession is very much articulated in the Constitution. That the president could be sworn in today, and tomorrow he decides that I am not going to, I'm going to go away, I'm going to resign. That is accepted. Yes. Or the president died. In the United States here, there was a president who I think died a week after he was inaugurated from pneumonia because he was outside for too long and got sick and died. And it was normal to be replaced. But one thing that people need to understand, Pa Ous, Adama Barrow is not an ordinary president. He was accidental, yes, but the manner in which he came to power was not a normal way of coming to power. Because this was a coalition of not only political parties, but a coalition of Gambians as a whole. And we had a problem, and our problem was a leader who had entrenched himself in power and was not ready to listen to anybody else. Our goal was to end that leadership. And to do that, we decided that we were going to come up with very difficult agreements, and it was going to be sacrificed. We told all parties, you are going to sacrifice your parties and your programs, and we will agree to one program. Because under normal circumstances, coalitions happen during second round of voting. The Gambia is the exception, and as a result of what we had. And they came with fundamental agreements. One was that all the parties that will come together will have a convention of which all parties, irrespective of size, will all come with 70 delegates, and those 70 delegates will select somebody. Whoever is selected, we will all rally behind that person. And this was why, after they did the convention, the voting, and Adama Barrow was elected, every single person who ran against Adama Barrow was asked to go to that podium and gave a very clear endorsement of Adama Barrow, and that you will support Adama Barrow and will be behind Adama Barrow as the coalition candidate. One. Secondly, they also agreed that whoever was elected would agree to resign from his party and became an independent candidate, which Adama Barrow did. Became an independent president. Now you are not a member of DOI or UDP or any party that selected you as their candidate, but you will be the coalition candidate. And then we came with another agreement that anybody who wins, if you're supposed to win, you will serve for only 3 years. And section 65, I think that's the very section of the Constitution, will be amended so that instead of having elections, having whoever succeeds you to serve the remainder of your term, we will revert back to the same provision that we had in the 1970 Constitution, where after you leave office, whoever succeeds you would call elections within 90 days. These were the agreements. And another final one was that you are not going to run in the subsequent elections, so that we will have an election that will be free from the power of incumbency. This way we will eradicate this culture of self-perpetuating rule. Adama Barrow agreed to all these things. And this was why Pa Ous, you sitting in England, decided to one day decide, you know what, I'm not going to buy a chicken burger, I'm going to use my money, send it to the coalition through GDF or other means, so that we will finance this enterprise. People put their monies together. Millions of dollars were sent to the Gambia by Gambians in the diaspora, including Gambians on the ground, who put their lives on the line, especially the young ones, campaign for Adama Barrow. Not because he was the most qualified, not because he was the most handsome, not because he was the most honest, not because he had more integrity, but because of the agreement that everybody agreed to put everything aside. Halifa Saleh campaigned for him, even though he was a candidate before that. Ahmad Ba did the same thing. All party leaders came and said, you know what, we are going to campaign for you. Africa's biggest problem, Pa Ous, has been as a result of self-perpetuating rule. Leaders who would come to power and refuse to leave. They engage in what I would call constitutional coup d'etats. They will amend the constitution so as to continue to stay in power. And the result of that is the endless wars, civil strifes that we have had in Africa. So the Gambia was supposed to be the exception. We were going to ask Adama Barrow, you know what, be the bigger person. Be like Alpha Conde. Resign. Let's go to elections. Oversee those elections. Give the Gambia a new start so that finally we will have a transition from one government to another without an impasse or bloodbath. So what Adama Barrow has done is to renege on that promise, and in the process put Gambia's dignity and stability in jeopardy. Because anything that happens now, 3 years jot now, which is a legitimate concern, and the way that this government is trying to react to it could have been averted if Adama Barrow had stuck to his promise and for once be a politician that Gambians could celebrate. Because by his actions, he has now pretty much reinforced this notion that all politicians are liars. Because that's what they tell you. So to me, Pa Usman, morality and legality, when you make that argument, let's look at when it was legal and totally immoral. Apartheid was very legal, but abhorrently immoral.
Well, I wouldn't want to dwell so much on that, but the examples you gave, the time it happened, in as much as today we said it's wrong, then to them it was right, supported by the law in place at that time. Just example, when Edward was asked about some activists, and he did mention that at that time it was correct as per the law they had, which was a degree. So I won't dwell on that much, but like you also mentioned about slavery, which you said was legal but not moral then, because we had some laws that we are backing the wrongs that were happening, and this is how politicians play with our mind, and this is how, when it comes to the issue of policies, we look at who made the policy, at what time was it made, and who was it made for. Example, in the UK, we have the conservative, these universal credit policies. These policies are designed to restrict, but then looking at who made them, they are the richest. And who is it made for? To suppress somebody at the lower class. And who is it to the advantage of? To the people at the top. And this is where the debate will continue. Because at the time of events, they think it was right and it was backed by a law that we are told that this is what you have to worship. This is the Bible. But again, it's unfortunate, and we are now trying to establish the position. But Mr. Coach, I'm going to ask you again, if we had strong CSOs, could they not have contributed to a massive change into restricting these things, or these 3 and 5? I'll give you an example. Look at pre-independence. We have the UP, we have the Butter Trade Unions. These were the institutions then who fought for Ghana's independence. Then I think our problem started to come when we have political parties. But you mentioned about the USA and the America as an example, where you have civil society, NGOs that suppress, that are in the forefront of government. And in the UK, they do work. When CSOs, when they sometimes they act more effective than even political parties. Their voice is more heard than even political parties. So could the likes of Duga could have been in the forefront of things, equally as what political parties would have done to continue the struggle? Like, it's unfortunate we have to struggle till when, God knows.
Yeah, but Pa Ous, UP was a political party, but we have to understand that the problem that Gambia has had, and I will concede to you that yes, the lack of civil society groups in the Gambia is a challenge.
Yeah.
But just as we are trying to perfect our democracy, that perfection would only come if we have functioning, effective, and very vibrant civil society groups. And this is one of the reasons why Duga decided to open an office in the Gambia to make its presence felt. Now, let's understand two civil society groups, because it takes a lot to operate. You know, we are self-funding our activities there. So sometimes you need those fundings to be there, to be able to effectively participate. But like you said, yes, civil society must be present, and its presence must be felt in that country so as to help to guide the process. But you see, pressure groups, if you want to call it that, like 3-year Jotna, are equally important. Because whenever citizens organize themselves around an issue in a democracy, that is something that should be celebrated. you know. So these are all important things. As you know, I just want to put it this way. There was a time we were talking about, you know what, maybe if Gambians were given an opportunity, giving their voices so that they can speak out. That is achieved as we speak, because the media has decided to open its airwaves to Gambians, and every program, even now music program, DJs now talk about politics. People are calling, they are talking about issues. So that's an important first step. But like you said, we have to work. It's not going to be easy to establish very vibrant, because it's not, you know, you cannot just establish CO, this thing, civil society group for the sake of it. You have to establish one that is vibrant and focus on issues, and not all of them can focus on the same issues. There are some that may focus on developmental issues. Some will be on health, some will be on human rights, some will be on youth, some will be on other issues. So, but then you have to work very hard to achieve that. I think eventually we will get to that. There are Team Games of and all these groups that are coming up all over the country. These are they cannot be overlooked. But like you said, it's important, and this is a work that we must continue to do, and eventually we'll be achieve that goal of having very, very vibrant and civil society groups in that country.
Thank you. I'm not gonna hold you that much long, because I'm gonna we got about less than 15 minutes to go, and I'm gonna come to Sohna. Sohna, I'm gonna be talking about. I'm very concerned about finance of the Duga activity, and before we go to that, does the Duga in any way link to the GDF, or were they the initiator of the GDF?
In no way.
No way.
No, Duga. I heard about GDF just like everybody else. You know, the new civil society, not civil society, but a body that was formed to fund, you know, just the coalition. Not even the coalition, because GDF was founded before the coalition, but just to support the political parties. Duga as an entity and as individuals within the organization, we have all supported GDF and their activities. But Duga did not form GDF, and yeah, we just support it as individuals and as Gambians. I think
So
in the early days, I think he was part of GDF briefly, but as of now, or as even up to the point of the coalition and the elections and all that, no member of Duga was even a member of GDF. Am I correct,
So-
Pastor?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, good. Yeah. Okay. So
Yes, I was part of it, and then I left. But continue to support them, because I believe it was one of the most important entities, definitely, and they did a very, very good job in organizing Gambians financially to be able to finance the coalition
Absolutely.
activities.
So there was no kind of financial support from Duga to the coalition 2016.
Oh yes, there was.
Oh, yeah.
There was. We supported. We gave out money. I think I don't remember, a lot of money, where we also went and told them. I think initially it was, if I remember, I think it was about $3,000 or more than that, and then half people had a show where people matched what we were giving to give to the coalition. Yes, we gave. Duga gave, and individually Duga members gave, and then individual members also helped to raise massive amounts of money for the coalition. Yes, we participated.
We were part of the coalition fundraiser here in DC.
Oh yes,
And I think DC,
definitely.
didn't we raise the most? I stand to be
Yeah,
corrected.
we raised. I know Musa Jem would try to dispute that, but I think we raised
Yeah,
a whole lot of money from here.
we did.
DC.
And yeah, we were definitely actively involved in that, and
Oh yes,
for
oh
GDF.
yes.
And because we
And-
supported and we believed in it, and we still do.
Oh yes.
This another question I will have also. Duga, as it calls, Democratic Union of Gambian Activists internationally, in as much as Duga exists to bring in international activists to give back home, or well, I'll put it that way. What has it done, or what is it doing, or to make sure its people in the diaspora can have their voice, can exercise their democratically given rights as prescribed in the Constitution? We want to vote. So what is the position in that? The democracy will affect the cancer. So what is the position? Because of
If the diaspora doesn't get that vote, I think it'll be time for Duga to kind of reactivate its activities, especially here.
Time is going, and if no political party, only few political parties are talking about it in parliament, or few people, but if no political party is not taking the iron stick to make sure it happens, why is Duga not say, look, every day on the ANOPA, we have to do it, it had to happen, and it must happen, start the process now, or we will start it for you.
Okay, I will tell you. If you go back to Right to Know campaign, Right to Know on Facebook, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jegan Gray Johnson had read out a statement that he had submitted, kind of like a letter that he had submitted to the Independent Electoral Commission, of which Duga was a signatory to that letter. And it's basically one of the main points there was enfranchising the diaspora to vote. It's been almost 3 years, and we keep talking about enfranchising the diaspora. Secondly, we have the Constitutional Review Commission that's going on. The draft will be submitted, or is it the draft? Yeah, will be submitted to Adam Obaro in December. And that's another thing that we're looking at for sure. One, whether the diaspora vote will be in that constitution and they don't try to tamper with it. But I mean, just going back, I'm very, very confident that the diaspora will get that vote. One thing we do need to be mindful of, and eventually, I mean, it'll be in the new constitution, I'm confident. However, we have the Constitutional Review Commission going on right now. They're going to submit that constitution to Barrow. He's going to do whatever he wants with it and then send it to the National Assembly, and it will eventually go to a referendum. One thing that diaspora needs to be mindful of, and we need to start pointing out, and I have pointed it out on several platforms, even to Aliou Mamad Ndiaye in the Gambia, in some forum, where the diaspora, as of now, we do not have the right to vote in that referendum. So we participated in the whole process for that new constitution, but when it goes to referendum, as the situation stands right now, we cannot even say yes or no on that referendum. So that is one thing that we need to point out, and we need to be very, very mindful of, and push to make sure that our enfranchisement happens before the constitutional referendum.
Coach, anything on that?
Well, and in addition, Duga also submitted its report to the CRC, and that was very much clear there. So I can tell you, if that's not only Duga, if this government or any government, subsequent government, wants to deny the diaspora the right to vote, I think Gambia would be ungovernable. I can tell you that right now, etc. So I think there are, you see, to me, there are 3 things: term limits, 50+1, and the diaspora right to vote. These are 2 things that would be unnegotiable. And I think, like you said, the campaign must even start, because I believe that the IEC should start registering new voters, so that when the referendum happens, we will have a clean voter roll. Because I don't trust the one that we are currently using, and I believe that process should start now, including the registration of Gambians in the diaspora. That way, when the referendum happens, we all would have participated in the process. But like you said, we all have to be very, very vigilant to make sure that these provisions are in the Constitution, and most importantly, that they are entrenched, so that a Pa Ous will not become president tomorrow and decide that I have the majority in the National Assembly, I'm going to change it. We are not going to stand for that.
No, and I hope the campaign will start now, because there is no time. Because what could likely, what we have in the pipeline within this short 2 years' time is so much. We have the Janet Commission. We have so many commissions that need to be, that each report needs to be looked at and implemented. We had also the TRC mid report is coming in January. We also have the CRC also going to be submitted. So if we are not featured now, I don't see it happening. And government, like they always do, they'll come with always excuse of Amunhali's finance. And I think 2016, 2017, when Bro first came to USA, I could still remember on the 23rd of September 2016, I came there with a documentation that Flex Dan and myself had prepared, or Flex had prepared and sent to me. And I think I once sent to Duga for them to look at that. The financing should be an issue, because we give examples of Senegal and other countries, and also the process would have been very easy as well. Now, this gives me to this question again: what is the relationship between Duga and our foreign minister, who also is the minister for diaspora? Because Duga
relationship.
Yes. What has there been any
No,
any?
No. I think let's not confuse Duga's role here. Duga has no relationship with any government official.
Okay.
As an organization. But if an issue comes up where we have to write to or contact any official, we will do that. But like a relationship between a minister and Duga, no. We know everybody knows everybody in the Gambia, but it's not like we don't have a relationship with Adama Barrow. Other than he's the president of the Gambia, we are Gambians. If we have an issue that affects any ministry, we will write direct to that ministry. Because our focus is the institution and not necessarily individual relationship. We are not interested in that. Exactly. No.
I think this was the word I used yesterday, that we have to give regard to the seat of the presidency, the institution, not as the individual. Because I think the individual.
Right. I'll start walking because my time is almost done here. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes to go. Well, less than 5 minutes to go. And yes, in my last question, which will be to see how transparent and accountable Duga is. And this brings me to the checks and balance of Duga. How do you hold yourself accountable to the public? How do you do your checks and balance of your activity? How do you reconcile what you got, what you do, and your evaluation process, how to measure your success? Well, this could be a kind of a recruitment drive for people to come and join Duga. Likewise, and from here, I hope the UK will have a Duga. And I'm very interested to see Duga in every country in the world, because the diaspora needs to get up. We are 21% of the Ghana's economy. We are not small. And Duga could be the mouthpiece to carry out that, say, look, government, we are this. Give us what we want. And also to bring out all activists together on one platform and stop the segregation. And also, then lastly, maybe I'll have Coach to have his last words to invite people and to give us the reason why we have to be together as Duga. Also, I people in the Gambia.
Can I just say, as we say, Duga International was born out of necessity. And even when Duga was formed, the ultimate goal was Duga Gambia. I mean, of course, anybody, any Gambian or anybody across the world can be a member of Duga. But I mean, I think that right now the diaspora is more of a proxy for Duga. I mean, the home base is Gambia. I mean, right now we're Duga Gambia. Yeah. So, I mean, but that does not mean that anybody who wants to be part of Duga, even from the diaspora and anything, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, in terms of accountability, I think we are very open. I mean, we have our meetings, we have our members, and I don't think anybody in Duga can say they don't have a voice. It's just, I mean, strictly open, and everything we do, that we always reach out, I mean, to all the members, not only the executive, but even the members, and just, bring everybody in. Yeah. And we try not to centralize it also. I don't think we are centralized. Everybody, it's like, even back in, during the struggle when you had, like, the UK and other parts of the world going on, everybody's autonomous to make their own decisions and do their own activities based on their comfort level and, just availability.
Thank you. Mr. Coach?
Yes, sir. Well,
anything on that check and balance and accountability?
Well, first of all, like Duga, we have nothing to hide. Of course, if you are on the Jami, if you are a group that, like we were, there were things that were just on the need-to-know basis. But that doesn't mean that we were going to hide anything. And an example in point here is when we were doing Operation Borbor to take over the embassy. That was not something that we could just go and talk to anybody about, because it was a process that started in February and was executed in October. So operations like that are that, but otherwise everything financially or anything financially is not like we have much to hide anyway. But yes.
Did you see yourself as a rebel at some point during the struggle, like Operation Murmur?
No, I don't know what a rebel is. I saw myself as somebody who was determined to make sure that we'll escalate this process, because Operation Bormor became very, very necessary, because our struggle was always a footnote. Gambia was too small. Most people did not pay us any attention, and we came to the conclusion that we needed to do something drastic that would get people to start talking about our issue. And I think we were able to achieve that goal when we did that. So I don't know what rebel is. Maybe if you ask Jame and his people, they will say, yes, these people are criminals. Well, they call us that anyway, that we were criminals. We were, unruly youths. That's what they call us. They made us look younger than we are, like great, and all that. Yeah. But yeah, so we have definitely, Pa Ous being always very open. And even if you ask other organizations in the diaspora, there was nothing that we've ever done that we've not involved other organizations. Anything that we did. And there are so many other organizations who, when they were engaged in other stuff, Duga would contribute to their activities. Whether in fact there were people they will be traveling, in the course of the struggle, and we will contribute to make sure that was the case. So we've always believed that we were not, like we used to say it, we are not in competition. We are in we are more interested in collaboration than competition.
Okay,
but yeah.
Given your experience in this kind of operations, what would you advise to the Gambians who just want to get up and have a street protest? That wouldn't be defined, or that wouldn't necessarily have any strong objective or procedures and process, and they end up just going in the streets and just say, yeah, T-shirt, we want this thing, and just been arrested and go out. Is that still the usual thing that we need to keep doing? Because, like you said, a small country, we've not been hurt, but you need to do something to attract an attention, which was Operation Murmur. Could Gambian young people start doing something like that? Not go out in the streets?
No, I'm not going to advise anybody to go and get arrested in the Gambia. First of all, you always, when you're holding a protest, you always have to ask yourself, why am I doing it? What's the objective?
Yeah.
And then, because you have to have your message. But what has been happening for the most part is, if you're not very organized, your message will be drawn out. And what people will remember will be things that will not have anything to do with your message. So my advice to anybody that wants to protest, wherever you are in the world, is that please make sure that you have a clear message.
Yeah.
And you also must not allow any agent provocateurs, or whatever you want to call them, who may come and pretty much derail that process. Protests, when people protest, it is to talk about specific messages, to talk about issues. So if you fail in articulating a particular message, then you fail in your objective to protest. So I'm not going to advise anybody to just protest just for the sake of it, or munna gina rekarama gina. No, that doesn't make sense. But go out for a reason. Why, with that, that's what it is.
Okay. Can I also add that, I mean, people need to be very, very mindful. When you go out there and protest and you start destroying property or just being very, very unruly, that kind of clouds your message. Because when you go out there to protest, you want the news to say this and this, these are the reasons that this group came out to protest, so that your message can get across. You don't want the news coverage to be, oh yeah, they came out to protest. They're not even talking about why you were protesting, but that they destroyed this person's home, or this happened, this happened. That's not that. I mean, then you've lost the reason why you protested. So I mean, people have to be very, very mindful. You go out there, you protest, send out your message. That's a protest. You go out there, burn property, destroy property, or harm people. That's not a protest. That's a riot. So we're hoping that people get into the culture of protesting peacefully, and making sure that their message is, they get their message across.
Yeah. Thank you. And the aftermath of that, instead of the government to react, they're now going to react on your crimes, and you have not achieve the purpose, because the whole purpose of protest is to trigger a reaction from the other end, but not to your advantage, but also to your advantage. So these are things that we should know. And we are now coming to 9 o'clock now, and this is the final show. And thank you. And do you have any last words? Anything from Duga to the public, to the Gambian people, to the world, to the government? Anything?
Well, The government, my God, yeah, that's a different show. Yeah, if we want to talk to the government, we're gonna have to have another show on that one.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Duga's here. We're in
just give
business.
them a yobal. Give them a yobal from Duga.
Yobal from Duga.
No, no, no. All, yeah, I think all the government, what we just let them not lose sight of why why
Wow,
they were elected into office,
wow.
and the
Okay.
struggle that was waged, the brutal, bitter struggle that was waged for 22 years. It was not an easy struggle. A lot of people died from it. A lot of people were lives were destroyed, women raped, and all that. So I think if they go to bed, every time Adam Abaro goes to bed and his ministers, and are satisfied that they have fought in the interest of those, who fought the struggle, in the interest of what we were fighting for, then maybe they can have a good sleep. Unless that is not the case, then they are not doing a very good job. That's it.
Exactly. Just remember November 30th of 2016. That's the day before the election. The mood in the country, how the country felt, and the hope that we all had. I mean, I think everybody should just go back to that day, and even December 1st when victory was finally declared. And that should be the motivation and basically the starting point for everybody, including this government, to just remember where we came from. It's very important, and the victims, the
Thank,
victims.
thank you very much, Sohna and Coach. And it's been really a pleasure having you. And we apologize also for the technical start and also for the late start of the show. I think it was scheduled for last week, but we couldn't have it last week, so I had it today. And
Yeah.
and this is what VOD is all about. We have an open door policy. Should at any point of time you need anything, this kind of programs, we can give you our platform, and or if not us, somebody else could do it, or yourself could do it on the platform. And also, I hope Baro had the message because he do watch these programs. And this has been a very gentleman reminder to you and to the interest of this country and yourself and for Gambia as a whole. We're a small nation, nothing can divide us, and then it's not worth it. A country of less than 2 million people don't have to fight, and then sometimes it's not worth it. But as a government, there has to be checks and balance in place. And Duga, as we all heard, they are prototype. Well, that's what they stand for. Make sure government is held accountable for. Make sure that democracy. Make sure what we fought for is not being lost. And then value the lives and people, and also civic educate Gambians to the best of their ability. And I hope I am right in that summary. And we thank everybody who wasted or who invested their time in watching and following. This video could be found also on our page and also on YouTube after an hour. And also follow us on our page for more programs. And then, Coach, I would like to have you again on a one-to-one program on the TRLC. I'm not sure when. Um,
Yeah, we can take that offline. Yeah,
yes. Okay,
yeah.
I'll bring you down one by one, and then remove from stream. So, Coach, you're going down. But thank you very much. And
Okay.
thank you very much, listeners. This was your presenter, Pa Ous. Goodbye until we meet again.